let's talk a little bit more about the San Francisco 49ers decision to start the season with Sam Darnold as their backup quarterback. You could see it coming. You could see it coming down the pike. And I just always want to root for everybody, right? And so, but Trey Lance in particular, he had us at hello here on the show, and he was with us in Arizona at the Super Bowl. He was our first guest that Super Bowl week, and him talking about, I just want to compete. I'm happy to compete. I know I'm the third overall pick in this draft from a couple of years ago. That doesn't earn me anything. I'm going to go there and compete. I'm going to get better, health-wise, and I'm going to go compete. And that video went viral because Niner fans were like, attaboy.
Yep.
And then Sam Darnold shows up after that.
Cool.
And I'm like, do they have Sam Darnold there as Purdy insurance or Lance insurance? That's been the question I've asked literally everybody.
Yeah.
And how many of the information men and women who've been on the show have said both? But at the time, it was probably Lance insurance, because Lance might have been the Purdy insurance. Or it's always been Lance insurance. That they just figured Purdy's going to be the guy, and if he's not, we're going to go with somebody who's got a lot of experience because we just don't know if Lance is going to be ready. Mm-hmm. Just don't know. And the kid has just had nothing but bad luck. COVID in his final year as a collegiate. Hurt his finger in the final preseason game of his first year, and it messed him up for his rookie season. But Jimmy G was there anyway, and the concept of Lance coming in was he's going to maybe be the red zone guy. Jimmy G will matriculate down the field, and then Kyle Shanahan and his offense and all his bag of tricks inside the 10, Lance is going to get in. And Lance threw, again, the first touchdown pass of the year in his rookie season for the Niners because they brought him in the red zone. And then Jimmy G just took it over. And Lance, in his one shot when Jimmy G was hurt, he got a little dinged up himself again. And it was Jimmy G's show. And then they were going to start the season with Lance come heck or high water and signed Jimmy G as Purdy insurance because Lance was their guy. And if Lance couldn't go, what are they going to go with, the last pick in the draft?
No.
So Jimmy G was brought on as Purdy insurance and wound up being Lance insurance. And then Purdy wound up being
the guy,
the man. So coming into this season, it's going to be Purdy. And they needed to have somebody there in case Lance wasn't going to be ready, in case Purdy wasn't going to be ready. And it turned out to be Sam Darnold, who now has the job over Lance. And I honestly, I think if Lance didn't get hurt last year, they were ready to go with the ups and downs that come with a kid quarterback just to see what they have in him. And if somehow, some way, middle of the season, it was so bad, in comes Jimmy G, because we're not going with Purdy. And that got blown up. So here was Kyle Shanahan on local radio yesterday about, what is this one about right now? If Lance is going to be a Niner still in week one, because they do love him, but not love him enough to send him out there against the Steelers if Purdy somehow gets knocked out in week one. Here was the answer from Shanahan there.
I'm really hoping so. I mean, this isn't a thing that we're giving up on Trey. This is more of how Brock played in his 7 games, and that was decided before the season started. And then how good Sam's looked. They both looked good. But we do have to make a decision here, and you only get so many reps at it, and we feel starting about 10 days ago, Sam really separated himself, and we got to keep it real in that way. But I feel very, very fortunate to have both of them here. I really hope when it's said and done that all 3 of these guys are here, and you never know when that's going to come up. We needed 4 guys last year. Doesn't happen much, but if we can have Trey as an option here, I would feel extremely happy about that. We'll always try to do right for Trey. If there's a better situation that his heart's in and something like that, we're going to make sure not to do something that hurts him in that way. So that's stuff that I talked to him about this morning. That's stuff I'll talk to him about tonight and continue to talk to him about. But Trey knows how I feel about him, and I hope he ends up being able to be here, and that's the best thing for him. But we got to see what is the best thing from now until then.
I mean, say what you will, Kyle Shanahan let him know as soon as he knew. And I know there's a lot out there of people thinking, I think RG3, who's on tomorrow's show, tweeted out Shanahan knew the minute they signed Darnold. I don't know about that. We'll talk about that with Robert.
Does this then go down, if this is the outcome, as one of the worst trades in NFL history?
Well, again, the answer to that has to be no, because the draft is such a crapshoot, and neither of the coach or general manager is going to lose his job over it. Normally, you make a move like that, the coach and GM are out. Unless you can sign someone like Aaron Rodgers. Think about it. The Jets earned the second overall pick in the same draft and took Zach Wilson, and that didn't work out to the point where they're like Aaron Rodgers is coming in, and the GM and the coach who have been there the last 2 years, they're in a good stead. The reason why Shanahan and Lynch are in good stead with Jed York, and for many reasons, is they made the NFC Championship game the last 2 years with all of this stuff going on. So it hasn't torn the franchise asunder. And you heard what he said about if Trey has his heart in something, that they're going to do their best to give it to him. That means finding something else. I don't think they've made it known. Is it possible they're going to let his representation seek a trade to where he wants to go? One person who I think would counsel against that, because he does believe in Shanahan's ability to know what quarterbacks can do and help that quarterback become better, is Steve Young, who was on the show in the first hour yesterday before this news hit, but read the writing enough on the wall about Darnold and his standing to say this about what Lance should do moving forward.
My advice is claw your way to stay here. Because again, there's a lot of places that he would go that he's not going to find out those answers, and he's going to flail because he doesn't have the opportunity. And so just figure out a way to stay here so he can continue to develop in a place, or if it is somewhere else, just pray that it's one of those a dozen teams that can take care of quarterbacks.
Now, maybe he does have the ability to decide where he goes next. Because as you heard Steve Young say, pray that it winds up being a spot where they take care of quarterbacks. I don't know if the Niners would just say, doesn't matter, we'll take the highest draft choice we can get, because, man, did we spend a whole ton of draft capital just to go draft him. They might, as you heard Shanahan saying, he's, honestly, how many times do I say it's like a coach on sodium pentothal? Right? And didn't Young say that yesterday? Like, Kyle Shanahan just tells you what he's thinking.
Yeah.
So it's possible they're going to let him decide. You heard Tom Pelissero say in hour one, Minnesota would be good. Kevin O'Connell is the guy who comes from the Shanahan system through McVay, meaning Mike, big Mike Shanahan. Obviously, Kyle does as well. And who are the people that can't quit Kirk Cousins, according to Daniel Jeremiah, every time he comes on? Everybody from this system. Even Mike Florio was saying, I should say even Mike, but Mike Florio said, in addition, is what I meant by even, in addition, has said all the time, Kirk Cousins is going to pop free, and Shanahan in San Francisco is going to be all over him
right.
if Purdy doesn't work out. So who would be able to take Lance in than Kevin O'Connell with Kirk Cousins right there? Maybe that's where you go. And he's from Minnesota as well. John Lynch this very morning talked about Lance's trade market. This is Lance locally in San Francisco.
That's probably the most likely option, is that he's here. If we could find a landing spot for Trey that is a really good one for him, and works for our organization, that's not something we turn a blind eye to. But that's not where our focus is right now. I think our focus is on Trey getting back here and us being the best football team. We're getting close to Pittsburgh, and that's kind of where we're at.
And, John, I saw another report yesterday from Diana Rossini from ESPN, who reported that you guys have been shopping Trey Lance as far back as the NFL draft. So I just wanted to give you a chance to address that report and whether or not you guys have had Trey Lance on the trading block for the last couple of months.
That's not accurate. So, people are going to, if I responded to every report, I'd have no time in my day, but that is not accurate.
That's Lynch, John Lynch, obviously. My Hall of Fame friend. Hey, you might be sitting there saying they don't know what they're doing. Right and left-hander don't know what they're doing. If you're the coach who's all about quarterbacks, like, I feel for the kid. We're going to try and do our best to help him out and get him to a spot if his heart's in it. And the general manager's like, hey, we're 2 weeks before going to Pittsburgh. I'm going to have the best team out there. And last time we were in the state of Pennsylvania, I had to play a fourth quarterback on our roster, and then the running back and McCaffrey had to run, wildcat, and then we brought back a one-armed Brock Purdy. So, yeah, we're going to have Lance on this team because that is making the Niners better. That's the reality of this whole situation. So I know you asked, is it a big bust? I don't know. The kid's 23. He has hardly played. If he winds up in his home state of Minnesota and winds up being the Minnesota Vikings quarterback of the future because the coach knows exactly what to do with the quarterback in this system. Yep. And then the Niners, you'll say, well, you blew it on him. Except, I don't know. Brock Purdy's pretty damn good. And we were going to do it with him if he wasn't carted off in his second year here in the second game. Catch the Rich Eisen Show every single day on the Roku channel, 12 to 3 Eastern, for free.